Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha television. You're watching the Breakfast News. I'm Frank Pereira. Here are the latest headlines. Islamic State gunmen take several people hostage in Sydney's cafe. Hundreds of armed police seal off the area. In Japan, despite low voter turnout, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's wins a landslide victory in parliamentary elections held on Sunday. India welcomes outcome of climate summit in Lima. Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar says deal addresses concerns of the developing nations. Cold wave intensifies in North India as Shimla and Manali receive their first snowfall of the season. Heavy rainfall in the plains brings down temperatures. Well, several people were today taken hostage at a cafe in Sydney, apparently by at least one Islamic State gunman. Live television footage showed patrons inside a cafe standing with their hands pressed against the windows. A black and white flag similar to those used by the Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria was also visible. Later footage showed the cordoned off street and armed police in the area. Witnesses claimed hearing loud bangs that sounded like gunshots. This was reported, by several local news channels. Major landmarks in the city, such as the Sydney Opera House, have been evacuated. Newsroom of Channel 7, located opposite to the cafe, has also been cleared. Australia is back in the United States and its escalating action against Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. This could have led to the attack. The nation has been on high alert for attacks by radicalized Muslims or by homegrown fighters returning from fighting in the Middle East. Moving on now, exit polls in Japan are predicting a landslide victory for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Official results are still being tallied, but Japanese public broadcaster NHK said Abe's ruling coalition secured a two-thirds majority in Parliament's lower house, winning 326 of the 475 seats. The win will give Abe 4 more years to institute his policies to revive Japan's economy by encouraging corporations to create more jobs and increasing government spending. Japan unexpectedly slipped into a recession this year, dealing a blow to Abe's Abenomics stimulus and economic reform package.
Abenomics put to vote. After the recent dip in support for Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, the nation voted in snap polls on Sunday. The parliamentary elections are being seen as a referendum on Abe's flagship economic policies.
景気が良くなってほしいのと、あとこの子のためにも明るい未来になってほしいなと思って投票に来ました。
Voters are electing who sits in the lower house of the Japanese parliament. Exit polls suggest that Abe's ruling coalition has secured a large majority. Despite Japan's unexpected slip into recession, Abe insists that his policies can get the country back on track. But not all are convinced.
安倍さんの政策はずっと行き詰まってたんですよね。アベノミクスがうまくいかないと、これはもうみんなわかるわけですよ。それから外交だってね、中国、韓国、北朝鮮、あるいはアメリカとの関係、ロシアとの関係。
どうやってアベノミクスを成功させるのかなという具体的な出口戦略がないままに今走っているようなので、そこは非常に関心が高いですね。周りでもやっぱり景気が良くないという声をたくさん聞いてますので。
But the lack of a real political alternative does not leave the Japanese voters with many options to deal with the economic slowdown. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this morning on this very subject is former Ambassador Shiv Shankar Mukherjee. Good morning, Ambassador, and thank you for joining me on the program. Let's talk about the polls that were held in Japan yesterday. Shinzo Abe's coalition, has secured another majority, and this time around, the people have shown some kind of trust in his policies. But is it really going to work as far as Abenomics is concerned?
Well, I think the results show that the people of Japan have backed his package of economic reforms, which is basically it's based on what's called quantitative easing. Quantitative easing really means printing money.
Yes.
Printing money and increasing the national liquidity of availability of funds, and of course government spending to boost the economy, to boost consumer demand and thereby energize industry. It did work for quite some time after his after the last elections. But recently, of course, there's been a slowdown, almost a recession. But I think the polls show that the people of Japan put their faith in Abenomics. It's being criticized. The criticism is that the voter turnout was low.
Yes.
But I think that's a misplaced criticism because who's to say whether the ones who did not come to vote would not have voted for Shinzo Abe? There was a heavy snowfall across the country. And in any case, a lot of people may have thought that the results are predictable anyway.
Yeah, because all the exit polls predicted a major victory for Shinzo Abe.
For Shinzo Abe, precisely. And the fact that he is now firmly in command with a 2/3 majority in the Diet shows that he can carry forward his package now with greater energy. Frankly, I also think that this is good news for India. Japan has, over the years been described, because it's under the American security umbrella. After the Second World War, the decades after it, people have said it's an economic giant, but a political pygmy.
Yes.
Which is, I think, absolutely wrong. Japan is among the largest economies of the world, but more than that, it is also the owner of some of the most original technologies of the world. It is a country which today enjoys the best of relations with us. The recent visit of our Prime Minister to Japan, in security terms, in economic terms, in political terms, is a landmark. They enjoy a very, very excellent relationship, which augurs well for India and its quest for development. So, on the security side, there is, of course, all sorts of talk about the combination of India, the US, Japan, and also Australia.
Yes.
In terms of a grouping that, if not overtly, at least behind the scenes, seems to be addressing or to contain the aggressive moves by China in trying to dominate Asia and in its actions in the South China Sea and so on. That may or may not be the stated objective, but as a matter of overall global and particularly Asian balance, I think Prime Minister Abe's continuation over the next 4 years is good for Japan and certainly good for Indo-Japan relations, certainly good for India as a source of Japanese technology.
There's been much talk about low voter turnout. Even we spoke about it just a short while ago. Could it also be the fact that the opposition hasn't done too much as far as, politics in Japan is concerned? So the people don't really have too much of faith in the opposition as well. And that's the reason why too many people didn't go out and vote.
I think you're quite right. The combination of factors, including the weather. But, as you know, the Prime Minister's Liberal Democratic Party has ruled Japan for almost all its post-war years, I think maybe 5 decades or so. And the party that came into power because of the disenchantment of the Japanese people with the Liberal Democratic Party in the election before this one, within a matter of a few years, destroyed the people's faith in them. There were scandals, there were failure of policies and so on. So yes, the backlash, I think, was certainly a positive support for Prime Minister Abe's attempts to reform the economic reforms, but certainly also the fact that the opposing party was not cutting any ice with the electorate also played its part.
You spoke about economic reforms. Now, let's not forget Japan needs a turnaround as far as its economic reforms are concerned.
Indeed.
And, among the elite countries, Japan has got one of the highest debts that it needs to clear.
True.
So that is something that Shinzo Abe probably needs to address, from day one.
Absolutely. This question of public debt is certainly one of the biggest problems he will face, his economic reforms package will face. And, the answers to this are very hazy, and I'm certainly not qualified to say what exactly is going to work. But yes, this is a problem that he has to face head on. As The Economist wrote once, I think, about Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan's first term was marked by what was called the mountain of debt by America. And The Economist wrote, and this applies to Japan today, that when you have a mountain of debt, you stand tall, but sooner or later, mountains have avalanches. So that is a major area of concern, and the optimist would say that Japan has one of the most highly educated electorates and populations in the world. It is the owner of, cutting-edge technologies.
Yes.
It has all the ingredients necessary to face this problem and solve it. But I think only the next few years, months and years will tell.
Indeed. All right, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us on the program this morning and sharing your views on this very subject.
Thank you.
Moving on now, North India shivers after showers and heavy rainfall. We'll tell you all about it in just a bit. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, bullets that kill our soldiers are backed by drug money. This is what Prime Minister Narendra Modi had to say in his third Mann Ki Baat aired on radio. Speaking about the drug menace, he said it is a national pain and the society and the government need to fight it together. Yes, Mo.
मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, आज फिर मुझे आपसे मिलने का सौभाग्य मिला है.
In the third telecast of his Mann Ki Baat on the radio on Sunday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi made an emotional appeal to the people of the country. He urged Indians to stay away from drugs, saying when a youngster gets into the habit, we consider them bad, but the truth is, it is the drugs that are bad, not the youth. He described drug addiction as a malaise filled with 3D of darkness, destruction and devastation.
चिंता इसलिए हो रही है कि किसी माँ का लाल, किसी परिवार का बेटा या बेटी ऐसे दलदल में फंस जाते हैं तो उस व्यक्ति का नहीं है, वो पूरा परिवार तबाह हो जाता है, समाज, देश सब कुछ बर्बाद हो जाता है. ड्रग्स, नशा वह ऐसी भयंकर बीमारी है, ऐसी भयंकर बुराई है जो अच्छों को हिला देती है.
He even questioned the youth addicted to drugs. He asked them whether they had ever given a thought to where the money spent by them was going.
क्या कभी सोचा है आपने किसी माँ के लाल को मारने वाला, भारत माँ के प्राण प्रिय देश के लिए जीने मरने वाले सैनिक के सीने में गोली लगी है? कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं है ना? उस गोली में कहीं न कहीं तुम्हारी नशे की आदत का पैसा भी है. एक बार सोचिए.
Describing it as a psycho-socio-medical problem, the Prime Minister said society, government and the legal authorities will have to work together to fight the menace. He also urged celebrities from all walks of life to spread awareness on the issue and asked citizens to start a social media movement with the hashtag #DrugFreeIndia. And here is a bit of advice from the Prime Minister for the parents.
बच्चे की 5 वर्ष की आयु तक प्रेम और दुलार का व्यवहार रखें. इसके बाद जब पुत्र 10 वर्ष का होने हो तो उसके लिए डिसिप्लिन होना चाहिए और 16 साल का जब हो जाए तो उसके साथ मित्र जैसा व्यवहार होना चाहिए, खुल करके बात होनी चाहिए.
The Prime Minister started his radio chats, which he calls Mann Ki Baat, on October 3rd. In the first program, he launched the Clean India campaign, while in the second, he discussed the issue of black money, vowing to bring back every penny stashed abroad into India. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, latecomers, beware. All central government offices have been told to install biometric attendance systems by the 1st of January, and the Prime Minister himself is to keep a close watch for latecomers and inefficient employees. Here's more.
9:15 a.m. The attendance monitoring meter on attendance.gov.in looks not different from the ever-ticking stock market indices. The data comes from simple biometric machines installed in government offices around the country. 149 organizations have adopted the machine so far. All others have to come on board by the 1st of January. The government, including the Prime Minister, is keeping a tab on laggards.
Recently, that biometric attendance system, which has been installed in 149 locations, now it has to be rolled out in the entire country. It is being monitored by the PMO, and DGSND is committed to complete it by this month end, so that it can be rolled out in the country and installed and everywhere, and then state governments can also adopt it.
It goes beyond just monitoring attendance and punch-in, punch-out times. The government also has plans to enforce e-office systems that will record work done by each employee on any given day. And here again, the shirkers and the lazy face the heat.
With electronic document management system, what we call it e-office or e-office automation, we can even know, did he really do something to earn his wages or her wages? And if he did it or didn't do it, what are the next that government can do by just simply being digital?
All biometric machines record employees' fingerprints and are linked to Aadhaar cards. Problem is, installation schedules are running behind the January 1 target. There are few certified indigenous biometric equipment manufacturers. Most of the machines are imported from China. The suppliers say they need more time.
इंडिया में है ये टेक्नोलॉजी, लेकिन इंडिया में बहुत कॉस्टली पड़ती है, इसलिए ये सारी मशीन्स बाहर से इंपोर्ट की जाती है, जहाँ पे टेक्नोलॉजी सस्ती है, जैसे चाइना से और यूएसए से ये टेक्नोलॉजी परचेज की जाती है.
The biometric attendance system comes as part of the Prime Minister's Good Governance initiative. Enforcing work discipline is the focus, and these are seen as the first strong steps.
The government starts implementing the e-office system from 1st January or soon after that, individual performance of government employees will be directly monitored by PMO. Will it be acceptable for all government employees? That's a question which remains to be answered. Without a legislation support, can this process go ahead? With camera person Narayan, Rajya, Sabha TV.
Moving on now, light to heavy rains intensified the cold wave conditions in North India since last night. Snowfall was recorded in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Jammu and Kashmir, while many places in Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh and some places in Rajasthan were lashed by showers. The Met Department has predicted heavy snowfall in parts of Uttarakhand and Jammu and Kashmir. The sky remained overcast as scattered rains and icy winds swept through Delhi, keeping people indoors. The city received 3.8 mm of rains during the day. Here's more.
Delhi woke up to chilly conditions and an overcast sky on Sunday. Some parts of the city received moderate to heavy rainfall accompanied by cold winds. The cold wave has added to the troubles of the homeless, with many finding no alternatives to fight the chill. Poor visibility due to dense fog has affected rail traffic, with several trains running behind schedule.
हम रिक्शा चलाते हैं। रिक्शा चलाते हैं, क्या आपको सवारियाँ कैसी मिल रही है? नहीं मिल रही है ना, टोक टाक एक रोटी राटी में हो जा रहा है, बस कमाई नहीं हो रहा है।
ऑटो चला रहे हैं तो 2-3 रोज से ठंड बढ़ गया, सवारी वारी तो मिलती नहीं है ना, तो काम धाम कम पड़ गया है।
In Himachal Pradesh, state capital Shimla and the key tourist resorts of Manali and Sangla received the first snowfall of the season. The mid and lower hills were lashed by widespread rains, breaking a prolonged dry spell.
जब आके हमने देखा कि बहुत बारिश थी, बहुत मन परेशान हुआ कि बारिश में कैसे आ गए, ठंड भी बहुत लग रही थी। और जब सुबह उठे हम आज सुबह, तो ऐसा लगा कि वाइट चादर सभी बिछी हुई है, दरख्त वाइट हुए हैं, तो ऐसा लग रहा है कि जन्नत में आ गए हैं अब तो हम।
Haryana, UP, Punjab and some places in Rajasthan were also lashed by rain, with the Met Department predicting more snowfall in the higher reaches in the coming days. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, winters take toll on the homeless in India every year. Several homeless die every year battling the chill out in the open. The Supreme Court has now asked the centre to provide adequate number of night shelters to the homeless. Here's a look at how prepared the government is this time around.
It's that time of the year when homeless people are seen fending for themselves out in the cold on the streets. More often, they do not have access to night shelters provided by the government. The Supreme Court has slammed the centre on lack of implementation of the National Urban Livelihoods Mission. The court has ordered the centre to set up more night shelters and verify the actual number of homeless people across the country. Lack of night shelters mean a lot of homeless people are left to spend nights on the streets. Some are forced out of such shelters for lack of ID proof.
वहाँ की औरतें लोग बहुत गालियाँ देने लगी। अब बोल रही है बाबू तू शादी कर ले। मैंने बोला नहीं, मैं नहीं करूँगी शादी। बोला शादी नहीं करेगी, सेंटर से बाहर निकल तू।
मुझे प्रूफ दो। अब मेरे पास प्रूफ खाली ये बोला था सोने की परेशानी, सुबह तो इधर तट भी जाता है तो रात तो परेशानी, तो मतलब सोने कारण नहीं।
Most of the night shelters lack basic facilities like drinking water and toilet. People have to pay to use public toilets. And even if they pay up, they have to face inhuman condition at these shelters. Filth and mosquitoes besides drug addicts and greedy caretakers.
में कीड़े आ जाते हैं, ऊपर पानी आ जाता है, फिर लेटने की भी परेशानी हो जाती है। वो टॉयलेट का ये है, उसमें कहना कि कोई वो 8-9 बजे के बाद में बंद ही कर देता है।
In a question raised in Rajya Sabha on the status of night shelters in the capital, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation informed about having 184 night shelters with a capacity to accommodate 14,584 homeless. It also proposes to build more night shelters. So far, government has identified 7 sites. Government also informed about its plan of procuring more plots in different parts of Delhi.
You can't expect a person to be away 30 miles away and walk all the way to do his work, whatever he does. So the night shelter has to be located where the poor people can get some kind of employment.
Unhappy with the inadequate and inhuman amount of space allocated to each person in night shelters, the Delhi High Court summoned the Delhi Urban Shelter Improvement Board for providing mere 15 square feet per person in the floor plans for night shelters.
And each of the shelters should be of 1,000 square meters dimension. And of all the shelters put together in Delhi, there is only one shelter which is 1,000 square meters. Bulk of the shelters are less than 100 square meters.
मेरे साथ तो सरकार है ही नहीं। कुछ हेल्प करे उन लोगों के लिए जो रोड पे सोते हैं, और सरकार कुछ करेगी तभी तो हम कहेंगे हाँ सरकार है।
According to NGOs, the estimate of homeless people in Delhi is close to 150,000. Even by conservative estimates, there are 55,000 homeless people. In any case, the night shelters are inadequate.
More than 300 people died last year battling severe cold. This year, the city has already recorded 211 deaths in November alone. These people hold government responsible for these homeless deaths. They say, though the government promises them more shelters, but they fail to execute. Anju Singh, Rajya.
Moving on now, India has welcomed the outcome of the climate summit in Lima. Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar said that the deal addressed concerns of the developing countries and gave them enough space to take appropriate nationally determined steps to combat global warming. Negotiators adopted a compromise draft for national pledges to cut global carbon emissions at the marathon UN climate talks at Lima.
After days of parleys over the text of the climate change agreement, UN members have finally reached a last-hour deal. About 190 nations agreed on the building blocks of the deal to combat climate change.
First of all, and I hope you can support this idea, I think that would be a good idea, if you agree, to call this document the Lima Call for Climate Action. So if you agree, it is so decided.
Under the Lima deal, delegates approved a framework for setting national pledges to rein in greenhouse gas emissions. They have to be submitted at the Paris summit next year.
非常感谢主席的强有力的领导力，使我们这次会议呢，最后取得了成功。也非常感谢大会的所有的工作人员和秘鲁政府，为我们参与会的所有的代表提供了周到的服务。
But environmental activists have criticized the deal as a weak and ineffectual compromise. They say far tougher sanctions will be needed to limit rising world temperatures.
The way that we were able to deal with that issue between the US and China in the joint announcement of a few weeks ago actually ended up coming in quite handy here, and Mr. Sheehan and I were able to offer that language up in effect and it has found its way into this text.
Differences between the rich and poor countries over how to spread the burden of pledges to cut tax emissions caused the talks to overrun by 2 days. The deadlock has finally been broken after 2 weeks of talks, but how long will the wave of optimism last? Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's take a look now at some other newsworthy stories from across the globe in our World Wrap. Haiti Prime Minister Laurent Lamothe announced his resignation on Sunday. The announcement came a day after President Michel Martelly accepted recommendations of a special commission that called for Lamothe's resignation as part of an effort to resolve a long-running political dispute over long overdue legislative and municipal elections. Turkey's police on Sunday arrested senior journalists and 26 others in lightning raids on a newspaper and television station with close ties to US-based Islamic cleric Fatehullah Gulen. Top European Union officials have criticized the mass arrests. According to news agencies, the arrest warrants were later issued for 31 people. Afghanistan's new president Ashraf Ghani vowed to shake up security in Kabul. In a speech on Sunday, he condemned a recent surge in Taliban attacks on civilian and military targets, calling them un-Islamic. Ghani said he was seeking to revive a security body last seen during a Soviet-backed government in the 1980s. It's time now to bring you up to date with all the action from sports arenas around the world in our Sports Beat. Well, Germany won the men's hockey champions trophy for the 10th time yesterday. They beat three-time winners Pakistan 2-0 in a thrilling final match in Bhubaneswar. Christopher Wesley and Florian Fuchs scored a field goal each to clinch the match. Putting up a formidable defense, Germany hardly gave their opponents a chance to score, although before scoring their first goal, Germany frittered away at least 3 scoring chances, including 2 penalty corners. India missed a chance to win the bronze medal in the Champions Trophy after losing to Australia by 1-2. It was a chance to break the 32-year-old medal jinx. Australia beat the hosts in a playoff match of the 8-nation meet on Sunday. The only time India had bagged a medal was a bronze in the Champions Trophy in 1982. 2 Pakistani hockey players were suspended for obscene behaviour after beating India in the Champions Trophy semi-final. Mohammad Tawseek and Amjad Ali were handed a 1-match suspension, while Shafqat Rasool was given a warning. Steve Smith will be Australia's 45th Test captain, replacing hamstrung Michael Clarke, who will not participate any further in the 4-match Test series against India. Vice-captain Brad Haddin was also considered for the job. That's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.